Hi, I'm Phil, Youth Services Librarian at Octavia Falin Children and Youth Library. Welcome to Hour of Code, a weekly program where we learn how to use computer code to create cool projects like animations and games. This month in November, we're learning how to use a program called Scratch to code simple video games. And if you haven't checked out the first couple videos from this month, I'd recommend checking those out first by clicking on their links in the video description. Today we're going to be making a maze game. And we're going to be learning about a really important computer concept called conditions, which is when you tell a computer to check if something is true or false, and then you tell it what to do if it's true or if it's false. To get started, first please go to scratch.mit.edu, and then if you haven't yet, log in to your account. After you've done that, we're going to open up a starter project, but today you actually have some options. There are 4 different starter projects that you can choose from: a sky starter project, a space starter project, a forest starter project, or a snow starter project. So based on what you see, choose which starter project you'd like to build your project with today, and then click on the link in the video description to open up that starter project. Once you've done that, click on the Remix button to make a copy of the project in your own account. Once the project loads, you have your own copy that you can add your own code to. Now, whichever project you chose, you will have a background with some sort of a maze that a character has to navigate through. You'll also have a player sprite. You can see mine is a little Pegasus. And you'll have some sort of a goal that your player is trying to get to. What we need to do is start by programming controls for the player. And in this particular game, we're going to use the mouse to control the player. So we'll be using, first of all, a motion block called go-to. So I'm going to pull a go-to block out, and we don't want it to go to a random position. We want it to go to the mouse pointer. When I click this block and run it, the player sprite tries to go to the mouse pointer. But right now, it only will go to the mouse pointer as soon as that code block is run. What we need to do is tell the program to continually go to the mouse pointer again and again and again. So we're going to go to the control section of our menu over here in our code blocks, and we're going to get what's called a forever loop and put it around our go to mouse pointer. Now, if I click on that code block and run it, you can see that the player sprite will follow my mouse pointer. Now, this is great, except that we want to be able to control when the player sprite follows our mouse pointer and when it doesn't. So we're going to add one more piece, which is called an event. And we're going to say when this sprite is clicked, that's when we want it to start following our mouse pointer. So now if I run that code, I have to click on the player to get it started. You can click the stop sign to make it stop, and then if you click the player again, it'll start following your mouse pointer again. The next thing that we need to do is make sure that whenever a new player starts the game, our player sprite always starts back at the beginning where we want them to start. If we don't program that to happen, then it will not happen in our program. And so we need to create another event called when flag clicked, because that's how the player who plays our game will start the game. When the flag is clicked, we're going to want our player sprite to go to a certain position. So if we go back up to the motion menu, we're going to take a block called go-to. And you can see that go-to has an X value and a Y value, which just tells where on our stage our player sprite is. Currently, my player is at -195 for X and 180 for Y. But I actually want my player to be to start at about here, so about -210 and -147. So I'm going to go here and just type those in, -210 and -147. Then I need to connect my go-to block to the when flag clicked, and if I click the green flag, my player will start down at the starting point. Again, if I click them, they'll start to follow my mouse pointer. Now let's make our game a little harder. Right now, if I start my game, it's pretty easy to get to the goal because my player can just go straight through the obstacles. So let's create a condition where the program continually checks if my player is touching one of the obstacles. And if my player is touching an obstacle, it moves my player back to the beginning of the game. To do that, I'll start with this forever loop, and I'm going to add a few more pieces of code. So I'm going to make a little bit of room by moving my when flag clicked script down. And let's go to control, to our orange control area, and we're going to get out this block called if then. Now this is what I was talking about earlier. This is a conditional block. It's telling the computer to, when this block is run, to check if something is true or not. If it is true, it's going to run anything that's inside of this loop. If not, then it will ignore everything that's inside of this loop. So I'm going to go ahead and put this inside of my forever loop so that it continually is checking for whether my player is touching one of the clouds. And now I'm going to go down here to the sensing part of my menu, and there is a block called touching color. Now, right now it says if it's touching the color blue, but I want it to be checking if my player is touching the color white. So I'm going to click on the blue color right here, and then down at the bottom you'll see this little tool that looks like a little picture with a little like paintbrush or a little dropper. And I'm going to click on that, and that gives me this cool little magnifying glass. And I can move my mouse over here to the cloud and click on the cloud, and it will actually program that color into my touching color block. Now I can put that right here into my if block. So now it's saying forever it's going to go to my mouse pointer, but if it's touching the color white, then I want it to start over again. So now I want them to go back to the same place that they start from, which is already down here. So I want to show you how to duplicate a block. If you're on a computer, you can two-finger click, or if you have a mouse, you can right-click. And when you do that, you'll see a little menu that says Duplicate, Add Comment, or Delete Block. And I'm going to click Duplicate, and that gives me a copy of that same block. So now my code up here says that if I touch the color white, then it's going to go back to the starting point. So now if I click on my sprite and I bump into a wall, my sprite actually starts back at the beginning again. But the problem is if I keep moving my mouse, because it's a forever loop, it's just going to keep going to my mouse pointer. And so it just jumps to wherever I go, and I can easily get past the game again. And so what I need to do is I need to stop this forever loop from continuing if I bump into white. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to Control, and there is a block called Stop All. So I'm going to put that right here. And now if my sprite runs into a wall or into a cloud, now it will stop following my mouse, and the player has to come back and click on the sprite again to get it to follow, and they have to always start from the beginning, which makes it a little bit harder. The last thing we're going to do is create another condition to check if our player has reached their goal or has won the game or not. And so I'm going to get another if block right here, and I'm going to put it inside of the forever loop after the if touching color. And I'm going to use another touching block, but this time I'm going to not choose a color, but choose a touching. And then if I click on mouse pointer right here, I can choose another sprite. Now my goal right here is to get to this heart sprite that's called goal. So I'm going to select that right here, and I'm going to put it inside of my second if loop. So if I'm touching the goal, and now you can create whatever you'd like to have happen once your player wins the game. It might be something as simple as going to looks and saying, "You win," for 2 seconds. It could be that. Or you could have your player do something like spin around or change colors. It's really up to you what you want to have happen when your player wins the game. Let me see if I can beat the game now really quick. There we go. So now we've created a simple maze game which uses conditionals to test if our player has run into a wall and when they have won the game. I would encourage you, if you have time, to check out the add-ons page. The add-ons page is linked also in the video description below. And when you go to the add-ons page, you'll see there are a whole bunch of new things that you can add on to make your game cooler and more complex, like a spinning obstacle. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me for Hour of Code. And as always, you're welcome to join me in person on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. at the Children and Youth Library if you would like extra help or you would like to code with other people. I hope to see you again next week. Thanks.